praying to all of the gods of trebuchets, we can make this thing work. Hi, it's Todd from Todd's Workshop and Todd Cutler here, and today we are going to be looking at incendiary bolts thrown out of trebuchets. This isn't just some weird fantasy thing that I cooked up for viewing numbers on YouTube. This was a real historical thing. And if it's a real historical thing, I just have to try it out because I need to know. Now, in Western Europe, they didn't seem to throw bolts, arrows, darts, call them what you want, out of trebuchets. But the Arabic sources show pictures of it being done. Now, I saw these pictures a few years ago, and I made this dart here, and I had a go. But it didn't quite work out, so let's have a look why. So when I made this dart, instinctively I felt that it should be pulled from the front, but I didn't consider how this was reflected in other weapons, other machines, other objects. And the thing is, centre of gravity is so often critical to this sort of thing. So Michael Allison, the javelin thrower that I work with, he throws from the centre of gravity of the spear. That's how you do it. There's a friend of mine who does model rockets. He puts a tether line on the centre of the rocket before he fires it, and he whirls it around his head to see how it flies. Does it fly flat? If you launch a glider, this was told to me by one of the Patreons on my channel I was discussing it with, but he was explaining to me that when you launch a glider from the ground, you do it from the centre of gravity. If you are air towing a glider, then you do it from the nose. But this isn't being air towed, it's being launched effectively from the ground. So what I did was put my tether hook in completely the wrong place and didn't know it. Centre of gravity wasn't even considered. So let's see what happens to it. And this is what happens. Well, that wasn't quite what was meant to happen. That's experiments for you. But I've done this before, used that very dart on a shorter cord and it worked fine. I made a longer cord this time, so I'm going to shorten it again. Stupido. Anyway, that aside, we're going to run it on a shorter cord and go again, using the power of gaffer tape. I did actually come prepared, because this sort of thing happens on jobs. And I used to do special effects, actually. And you can't be standing in a field at 4 in the morning with 200 people waiting for you, not being able to fix it. So we have glass reinforced tape. Good as new. Well, second attempt. Oh! Every single time I shoot this thing, it just thrills me. But what I could see really quite clearly is on the release, it did that. We'll have a look in the slow-mo and see what we can see. So you saw from that shot that I just did that it worked. It worked okay, but you also saw that sort of buck, that wiggle on release. And that's going to scrub distance off it and introduce inaccuracy into it. So you want to lose that. But assuming you can get clean release off the trebuchet, it still comes back to the question of why you would want to do it. Because this is quite a singular object. It's going to expend its energy in one strike in one spot. That doesn't make sense to me. When you compare it against throwing a 80, 100 kilo boulder that rattles around the battlements and can take out 30 people, why take out 3 at the very best? And the only explanation I can come up with is it's intimidating. It's going to be scary seeing giant arrows coming in, flying over your battlements. But if you know the answer to why they did it, please let me know, because I don't. And so the thing is, if you'd said to me a few years ago that they shot bolts out of trebuchets, I would have said, no chance, ridiculous idea, pointless, stupid fantasy. But we've seen the pictures. But the thing is, it's not just pictures. Because my friend Jonathan Davis, also an author, go check his books out, they are brilliant, sent me this, and it's by CHEVEDDEN, a translation of a Mamluk document. If you want to shoot bolts, some of which are filled with inflammable material and sticky gums, well, you know, how can I resist that? And others that are not. So we know that they were shooting bolts that were not incendiary bolts. If you want to shoot them from trebuchet, put a hook at the centre of gravity of the bolt. And that was one of those, duh, of course moments. Put your hook at the centre of gravity, as if it's a spear. I've never shot one of these before, and I am just about to have a go now. Now I want the weights to be true, so I've got my incendiary head on there, but I am not lighting that up at the moment. So I'm just going to cover it up, and we're going to cast it as is and see what happens. Loose! Development work required, I think. Old hook angle, no good. New hook angle, let's cross our fingers. Right, here we go again. Loose! Well, duck. Well, this is proving a little bit problematic. So, the Mamluk text may have said put the hook in the middle, but I'm getting better results by putting the hook at the front. Problems. So, I've got a tiny little screen on my slow motion camera. I couldn't quite see if the incendiary head hit the winch drum, but if it didn't, it was very close. That might have caused part of the problem. The other thing is that I lengthened the rope because I wanted the dart to go a bit further, because when I shoot balls, they usually go quite high. I think I probably lengthened it too much. Anyway, so I've radically shortened the rope. We're going to try it again. But this is the thing. If I lift it from the centre of gravity, it's going to travel forward. And I think it might hit the winch drum. And the way I've laid this machine out, I don't think it's going to work with these darts like this. If I then put a hook here and drag it, it'll tend to lift the dart over the winch drum. So I'm going to have one last go with the centre of gravity, and if not, I'm going to move the hook position. Because the thing is, what really is exciting me about this is fire. So anyway, let's give it a go, see what happens. Here goes nothing. Yeah. Okay, we'll check back on the slow-mo, but I think that the nose of the bolt hit the wheel and it just tipped it up and the string came off. The idea was, of course, that I was going to throw this from the centre of gravity. But maybe my machine's wrong, maybe my thinking was wrong, maybe my rope lengths were wrong, couldn't get it to work. I've just given that up for the moment because I want to see what happens when we throw an incendiary dart. So I put a hook on the front here and we're going to throw it and cast it like my other dart. Praying to all of the gods of trebuchets, we can make this thing work. Loose! Yes! Oh. Other than the obvious breakage, that will do us. Next one, incendiary. We had a successful launch, but the dart head bent on impact. And there we are. So I've got to straighten that out if I want to shoot that. We've got a spare. But in some ways, it's probably not surprising that it did bend, because actually it's a pelham head. I just used it as a shortcut. And the thing is, Todd Cutler now sells pelham heads. So go check them out. There'll be a listing in the notes. Absolutely fabulous, beautiful, and of course, excellent value. But we're just going to read that quote again, because I've been obsessed through all of this with incendiary charges. Incendiary meaning that they're burning on the way out there. The quote does not explicitly say that. It says, if you want to shoot bolts, some of which are filled with inflammable material and sticky gums and others not. It doesn't say that they're alike. On one level, yeah, I'm sort of, I'm winging it a bit. I'm lighting them and shooting them. But I have this fantastically named book here, Greek Fire, Poison Arrows and Scorpion Bombs. It is just brilliant. And the thing is, maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but the Arabic nations and over in Constantinople, they had ship-mounted flamethrowers. Ship-mounted flamethrowers in the 7th century. They had naphtha grenades, incendiary grenades. They had them, they used them. They were fascinated by and used extensively fire weapons. There is no way on the planet that they are not going to put two and two together and light one of these things before it goes over. That quote doesn't say it, but I know they did it, no doubt. But that leads us on to the next part, which is light it and shoot it. And yes, I am smiling. Well, this has been a day of disasters. I'm just going to go rescue the rope before it burns. Well, I know what went wrong. It has been a day of disasters, and it's getting late in the day and I'm under pressure. I forgot to fix the head onto the shaft. So it pulled the head off and left the incendiary on the deck. So, crisis averted, but I've learned something. Well, don't be stupid. But the other thing I've learned actually is that traditionally, if you want to get rid of a trebuchet outside of your castle, you send out a bunch of guys out of a sally port and they go and burn it down. Now with timbers, this is a small baby cute trebuchet, timbers which are 150mm square. And this is small. So the timbers on a big trebuchet are going to be like 30-40cm timbers, probably constructed there and then, green oak. That's really difficult. And I just always thought, well, they can't burn it down. But what I learned today is the small bits of a trebuchet are vulnerable. Things like the ropes, the winch system, the shooting channel, the bed under that, all of these things, which is going to take them some days to repair, those you can get rid of. So you're not going to destroy the whole machine, I still stand by that, but you are going to buy yourself a few days. Anyway, my stupidity equals a little bit of learning. Brilliant. Hi, I've interrupted this film for another Todd Cutler related interesting fact. And it's simple, medieval people had fun, because check this out. It had to have been made as a joke. And it's a copy of one in Bergen Museum dated about 1300. Anyway, you'll find this and loads of other pieces at toddcutler.com. Back to the film. So something I haven't learned, because I knew already, always be prepared. I've mended our dart, reloaded it, recharged it, and we're shooting again. Loose! Well, that worked! Hurrah! At last! You see little splatters around as you go. We come down with bigger sort of gobs of the stuff coming down. And then our lovely pelum at the end. Basically all burnt out. So, fantastic result. Absolutely fantastic result. So I couldn't get the centre of gravity right, but I did get a charge that worked, and that looked fabulous. So, I'm just going to have to go again. Main ignition. Launch! I love it! So that was just amazing. It was just like a fireball, like a TV comet coming through the air. And this was not one for me to be standing in front of because it gives such a splatter on impact. So this one I avoided and I stayed down the bottom, but my goodness, what a fantastic result. So we have got the first dart that I threw today and a little bit more of the incendiary mixture. So we're going to go for one last go, because that one, gaffer tape or not, is not living again. Loose! No GoPros were harmed in the making of this production. Incendiary dart, GoPro. Oh dear me. What can we conclude from all of that today? Well, history can be really exciting, interesting, baffling, confusing, because that text that I had, that Mamluk text, specifically said, put a hook on the centre of gravity. And actually, after it was explained to me, darn obvious, that's what I should have done all along, but I couldn't get it to work. So I had to go back to a drag hook in the end, which is not optimal, but it did actually function. They wrote it down, they instructed it, it was correct. I just couldn't do it. And then we get to the incendiary charges themselves. Well, they didn't say specifically in that text that they were incendiary charges. They said inflammables. Now that makes sense. But the thing is, they absolutely had the technology. So, you know, Greek fire, poison arrows and scorpion bombs, fantastic book. It lists it, it shows it. We know from the records that they had the ability to do it. They would have done it. So incendiary bolts, not in Western Europe, but in the Arabic world, absolutely would have been a thing. Why would you want to do it? Well, fire today is mostly an inconvenience. Sometimes it's a tragedy, either in life or in massive amounts of lost property. But back then, it was so much more important. It was much more likely to be a matter of life and death. Fire today, the fire brigade will come. They'll put it out. If it all goes completely wrong, the state or your friend will house you. There wasn't really that ability for the common man back then. So if you have fire and it consumes your seed grain or your house or your clothing or your animals, suddenly you are destitute, and that means death. The other thing you can conclude, definitely single use. Definitely single use. Didn't have gaffer tape back then. And the other thing is that they were just magnificent. I didn't see them coming in from out there like I've done before. Bit spooky this one, but you know those are going to be intimidating coming over the walls of your castle. But the last thing I'd like to say is pelum heads, lovely gorgeous pelum heads, available from toddcutler.com right now. If you want to support the channel, go visit the websites. Go and have a look. It's chock full of stuff that if you like this, you will love what's on there. And if you want to help out a bit more directly as well with exactly this kind of thing, Patreon subscription helps massively. So that was it, incendiary bolts. It will not be the last time I'm back with these, I am sure, because I've got to crack the centre of gravity. But until then, goodbye and good luck. It's been a day of disasters, hasn't it? Not that was, but my goodness. See you guys.